Hello, this is John, and this is Lima Bean Tea, and I'm going to be talking about uh, the big parade in my hometown, the big holiday at home parade. And in the previous story, I told you about the pancake breakfast we had, and this is about the parade, and this is just the biggest parade I've ever seen. I've been to Mardi Gras parades, other parades. I haven't been to any in Washington, D.C., and I know they have big parades, but this was such a good parade. And it was just a short block from my house. In front of my house was the Lysells. Their house was across the street. The next house was the Awful Dishes, and I'm sure that's not their name. It might have been Office something. We called them the Awful Dishes. I saw dishes in their house once, and I thought maybe they were awful. But anyway, right on the other side of their house then was Stroop Road. But anyway, the parade was there. It was a big old parade. It was on Labor Day every year. And I've gone back in other years to see the parade and found out that it wasn't nearly as good as the parade that I would see. So here's the parade. First off, it started at 10 in the morning, but we put chairs and blankets and things out there at 6 in the morning because they would start closing off streets all around the neighborhood to keep people from driving in because maybe 50 or 100,000 people came to this parade. I think it went for about 3, 4 miles, and it was really big. And we would sit out there, and you could actually sit out on the street, sort of around the curb, which was funny because this was a major thoroughfare, and it was all closed off. And it would always start with some sort of Army or Air Force or Marine band, with a flag and horses, and everyone would stand up for the flag, and the veterans in the crowd. And back then, they were World War I veterans in the crowd, and there were World War II veterans, lots of them in the crowd, as well as Vietnam veterans and Korean veterans. Anyway, they'd stand up and salute the flag, and us kids would all just stand up. And it was so fun because all the neighbors were out there. And one very interesting part of the parade was the Shriners. And the little I know about the Shriners is they're these men who raise a lot of money for children's hospitals. And I don't think there's as many of them around anymore as there were, but they were mostly guys kind of World War II age, so they would have been in their 50s and 60s and 70s. Some probably at that time World War I age. But anyway, these guys are famous for having a great time while raising money for kids, and they run these hospitals where kids come and they hire the best doctors, and I just think they're angels, but they raise money by having a great time. So they had all these groups of people. They had these marching guys in these really nice matching suits, and they wore those goofy hats. The hat's called a fez, and it had like a tassel, and it would say something like, Shriners District 102, and they would march in these formations while they played music or sang. Then they had a bus came through, which was cut off in the back, and they were all in these chairs, again in these gorgeous matching burgundy suits, singing. I mean, really good singing, and they had microphones and speakers. Then they had a lot of clowns, and I don't mean like the scary, freaky clowns you see in the circus sometimes from like weird places. These were like funny clowns and just crazy. And I'll get back to the clowns because they did some crazy stuff. And then they had these grown men in these little super small Corvettes, matching red Corvettes, and they drove these things around in these formations, like figure eights, and man, it was really amazing. Then they had these guys, old guys, in these matching outfits with these goofy hats, driving mini bikes, which is just like a little, I don't know if you know what it is, but it's like a trail bike, but small, like little kid size. Then like they'd have them on regular bicycles. Then they'd have them marching in just a marching band. Then they had horses that would do things in formations. And we loved this, which is crazy. Then they had a holiday at home, Miss Holiday at Home float, which was a beauty pageant for all girls. I think they had to be 17, and all their names were in the paper and pictures. And then they would have the winners. They would have to be, of course, probably beautiful and accomplished and smart girls. And I knew a bunch of them growing up. And then the schools would have floats, and the civic organizations. and it was the best parade. It lasted 2 hours. And they didn't really throw things. They would throw a little candy sometimes, and it was the best parade. But let me tell you kind of how it ended, and we loved how it ended every year. A bunch of kids out there just having a great time. My mom, by the way, would show up late after having cleaned up from the pancake breakfast we had had, and she would come with a ladder, a step ladder like you use for painting, and she'd put it up and just sit on top, balance herself on top, and watch the parade and see over everyone. But anyhow, uh, at the end of the parade, this weird-looking small flatbed truck would pull up with all this noise and like a siren, a old-fashioned siren on it, and all these ridiculous-looking clowns, but they just looked like clowns who had rolled in from a junkyard or something. They were sort of fake, dirty-looking, and had like fake old clothes, and they were hilarious. And on the back of this small flatbed truck that had like square wheels or something, looked terrible, was a big outhouse, and they were making all this noise, and they'd come around, and then they would shout out to the kids, "Okay, kids, you ready? We're going to count down." And they would say, 10, 9, 8. The kids would all repeat 10, 9. And when they got to 1, 0, there was this explosion. I don't know what it was, but it was really loud, like a big, oversized firecracker. And this guy would come flying out of the outhouse, this huge cloud of smoke. And then you would smell the most awful smell, this sulfurous smell. I don't know how they did this, but it would just permeate the area. And everybody would be like, PU, coughing and stuff. And this dude would start running around like he was on fire or something when he wasn't. And we would just laugh, and it was just hilarious. And then they'd go about another 500 feet or 200 feet and pull this same deal again with the guy flying out of the outhouse. And that was toward the end of the parade, and we really liked it. So there's a lot more about that parade I haven't said, but that was the parade, and it was really fun.